Today on the Dad the Best I Can show.
The reason I can be resilient and that others are is that we've learned that the struggle isn't the problem. The struggle is uh, how we become stronger. We lift weights to grow muscle, and we run to grow, to build a circulatory system and respiratory and just get faster. But it takes miles, it takes weight, and our hardships make our head, our mind, and our heart stronger.
Welcome to the Dad the Best I Can show. My name is Rob Roseman. Who wants to be a millionaire legend, Chicago futures trader, Vegas poker pro? Now I'm a dad to 3 kids, ages 7, 5, and 2. Phew! Wears me out just thinking about it. Each week we bring on high-performing dads like you. Entrepreneurs like Jesse Itzler, CEOs like David Cancel from Drift.com, athletes like Ken Rideout, best-selling children's authors like Zach Bush, to tell us your stories, your dad tips and tricks, to help all of us make it through dad life. We have a brand new website over at dadthebestican.com. Go on over to dadthebestican.com and sign up with your email. It's 100% free, of course. Be the first to hear brand new dad guests and get weekly dad tips in your inbox. How else are you going to keep up with the roller coaster that is dad life? We are running a really fun dad challenge every single week. We talk dad life and learn from dads much wiser than us. We're using an awesome free iPhone app called Spar. You know how hard it is to make a new habit stick, like running, reading, writing, even flossing. With the Spar app, you can win or lose real money with a group of friends to hold you accountable. It's a lot of fun, and it seriously works. Find out more about the challenge at dadthebestican.com. There's a new challenge you can join right now. Okay, enough out of me. On to today's show. All right, welcome to the Dad the Best I Can show. I feel honored to have today's guest on the show. His story is truly hard to believe. It's like something out of a movie. It's heartbreaking, but most of all, it's inspiring. And when you hear Aaron tell it, you'll see why. Aaron is a veteran. He and his wife created EOD Fudge at eodfudge.com. That stands for Extraordinary Delights, and you'll learn why he called it EOD in a few minutes when he tells his incredible story. And of course, he is a dad. Hey, Aaron, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Rob.
All right. Where are you calling in from?
Well, I'm calling in from Santa Rosa Beach, Florida. That's in the Panhandle, just between Destin and Panama City.
Excellent. So before we get to your story, which I'm excited for you to share, this is a dad podcast. How old are your kids?
We've got 3 boys. One's 8, just about going on 9. And we've got identical twin infants, 4 months old, boys also.
4 months old. I cannot imagine what it's like having twins. I see people struggling with one. What is it like having 4-month-old twins?
My wife complains that she has a hard time telling them apart. I'm the blind one.
Yeah, that's great. And I was looking, my oldest son is Cameron. Is that your son's name too?
Yeah.
Oh, it's funny. Small world. I saw that and I was like, oh, we have a lot in common. But yes, identical twins. You'll talk about what that's like a little bit later, but you've got an excellent video on your website that tells your story. But for those of us that haven't heard it, would you share kind of your background and how you ended up where you are today, Aaron?
Absolutely. I joined the Navy in '99, and at the time I went to college, but I didn't really have any direction. Didn't have a whole lot of ambition. I was loving life, but really, it was kind of adrift. Didn't know what I was going to do next, and wasted a ton of my tuition just trying to find my picture of college, which was Animal House. And I gained a ton of weight, and really didn't do much in the 3 semesters I was there. So it was kind of a mutual thing. The university invited me to leave. Uh, I agreed. I did. I figured, I love cooking. I always had. I've been cooking since I could reach over the counter, and I decided I was going to train to be a chef. But of course, like I said, the tuition money was depleted, and I tried to figure out a way how to raise some more money to get to school, and the military was the answer. So I joined the Navy, and in the meantime, the plan was 4 years, get the GI Bill, and get out. And in the meantime, I would become a Navy cook. And I didn't have any misconceptions about what I'd be doing. The ship's galley, long, hot hours, cooking for the ship's company. But it would be training. It would be good training for what I was come to, down the road. So uh, I went to basic training, and then I went to the Navy's A school, their technical school for cooking. And they sent me to shore duty in Naples, Italy, which was fantastic. But what they don't tell you is that at the time, Navy cooks, they look at it like a civilian version of hotel restaurant management. So on shore duties, uh, Navy cooks don't cook; they run the barracks, our version of the hotel. So I get off the plane. I ask, where am I going to be cooking? They're, oh, no, 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 no. We've got a position for you in the maintenance department of the barracks. So I get to Italy, and I'm walking around the Navy base with the Italian public works guys, plumbers, electricians, just running trouble call tickets into the rooms and whatnot. So I made the best of it. I would just all day long. While these guys were at work, I would be pointing at things, go, "Come City J, come City J. How do you say this? How do you say that?" And I was teaching myself Italian with a bunch of roughnecks.
Mm-hmm.
But I was determined to immerse myself in the culture. And when I was off duty, that's exactly what I did. I went on to the economy, and I just enjoyed being, reveled in being in Italy. 2 years later, it was time for me to change duty stations, and I finally did get a cooking position on board the flagship for the U.S. Sixth Fleet, which is only about a 45-minute drive away in Gaeta, Italy. And now I was cooking for a 3-star admiral. And that was fantastic. I completely bypassed the big, ship's galley, and now I was cooking with 5 other really terrific chefs for the admiral and his top brass. When flagships, they don't do those long 6-month cruises around around the world. They only, we would leave 3 or 4 weeks at a time, hit a couple ports in the Mediterranean, run up the flag, have a reception for some dignitaries, sometimes royalty, and then we'd head right back to Gaeta, Italy. So I got to experience the best of the Mediterranean. My leave time, my vacation time, I would go travel around Europe, like France, Greece, Italy, and Germany, and it was fantastic. But when about 2004, when both wars were in full swing, I figured it was come a time where I'd have to re-enlist or get out, and I'd found that I'd really loved the service, but I'd also realized that being a cook, though I love cooking and I love being a sailor, I wanted to do something a little more direct. The only thing I could do was volunteer to go to Afghanistan and fill in some army positions. But as a cook, I'd be filling in army positions, army cooking position. So
Mm-hmm.
I went from, running the admiral's mess to cooking for 600 and 700 in an army chow hall in Farah, Afghanistan. Funny enough, though, it was ISAF, a NATO base. So there were Portuguese, Spanish troops, and even a few platoons of Italian special forces. So I went from Italy speaking Italian to Afghanistan speaking Italian. It was fantastic. But that's when I met some EOD technicians and learned about the military's bomb squad, explosive ordnance disposal. And I realized that this was what I was waiting for. Something I could feel a little more, feel that direct action. I would be saving lives. It would be a first responder, and I could feel like I was really doing my best for the efforts overseas. So when I came back from deployment, I put in a request to change from cook to EOD tech. The only problem was the cooks couldn't be EOD techs in the Navy. It was not a specialty. It wasn't a source rate that you couldn't. The Navy wouldn't allow me to go over there.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted me to stay not only in my current position but my current rank, because the next rank up was overmanned.
Mm-hmm.
So my contract was up. I let it expire, and I went right over to the Army recruiter, and I signed up as an Army EOD technician. It was about a year-long training, and I was right back out into the desert, this time Iraq, and I was learning how to be an EOD tech along the way. Then in 2011, I deployed back to Afghanistan, this time as an EOD team leader. And EOD teams are three-person teams, with the senior most being the team leader. And the way that we work, the highest ranking guy is the one that puts on the bomb suit and does the long walk.
Mm-hmm.
That's just, you want the most knowledgeable one to be working on these things. And I'd finally earned my way to becoming the team leader and running my own team. So I'm about 8 months into this really busy, high-paced, and very dangerous deployment. I was just back from a 2 weeks R&R vacation back home. I got to see Cameron, my son, turn 1.
Mm-hmm.
I got to spend Thanksgiving with the family, which is one of my favorite times of the year. And I'd just thrown the luggage back into the back of our armored truck. My team picked me up from Kandahar, and we were heading back to our area of operation when the convoy commander radioed back and asked if EOD could take care of this device they'd found on the side of the road. No time like the present. They set security cord on, and I threw my bags off the robot, and the robot out the back of the truck, and what it found was a jug of homemade explosives connected to a pressure plate. It's pretty standard, very common in Afghanistan. Almost everything we ran into was just a pressure plate with a 9-volt battery and a jug of explosives. So the robot was able to separate the pressure plate, just 2 pieces of plywood with some lamp cord as the connections. And it was able to separate it, but it couldn't get that jug of explosives out of the hard packed dirt. And I needed to get some evidence so we could catch this guy. So I wanted all the biometrics. I wanted explosive samples, all that. And if I could do it safely, then I would. So I jumped out of the truck. I had my IED evidence kit in one hand and my metal detector in the other. And I started approaching. And just about the same time, my metal detector was trying to tell me something very important, I got the mule kick from hell. A secondary device found me about 20 or 30 meters from the first one. and I got punted into the air, landed on my hands and knees, and the lights were out. I I thought my helmet had gotten pushed over my face, but first things first, I, uh, I did the systems check, functions check, wiggled the fingers and toes and bent knees and elbows, and it seemed that everything was still intact. So I went upright on my knees and I went to adjust my helmet just to find that my helmet was gone.
Hmm.
And that's when I realized, I said to myself, oh no, this is bad. The Army is going to want that helmet back. uh, it's funny what we think about in these situations, but this is the truth. My team came out and rescued me from the danger area, and I was on a medevac chopper within minutes. And within 48 hours, I was at Walter Reed, and had to come to grips with my new situation. I was going to be totally blind. The explosion took my eyes, cracked my skull in a few places. I was leaking spinal fluid right out of my nose. It blew out my eardrums and caused burns and scars on my face. Thankfully, though, uh, I guess there's a perspective. Thankfully, it just hit me in the head. Below the neck, I was virtually untouched.
Hmm.
I don't know how that happened, but I'm thankful the damage was limited. But there I was, a blind soldier, blind father. I needed to figure out how I was going to carry on. If I could carry on, how I'd never even thought about, considered what life would be like until in an instant I was there. So, of course, those demons try to creep in, the why me's and the what ifs. But I've got such a great family support, and there's something about the military duty that kind of it just stuck with me, and it was less about me, and it was more about my family. It's about my son, and I needed to be strong for him. So after I recovered from the surgeries, and there really wasn't much Walter Reed could do for me. Once they healed up, and my face, most of those long stints our troops spend in rehabilitation is for learning how to use new prosthetics. I didn't have that, so
Mm-hmm.
I was ambulatory. I could walk out, and within about 5 weeks, I was out of Walter Reed, and I was sent to one of the VA's blind rehabilitation centers, where they teach you how to use the cane and all those accessible devices, talking phone and computers. And I was on my way to learning how to be a blind person.
Are you back home now, or where are you now? When this is taking place, are you back home in Florida, or where?
Well, they've got 14 of them around the country. I was sent to Augusta, Georgia,
Mm-hmm.
and spent about 6 months there. The longest class. It's basically a school, and throughout the day you do manual skills, living skills, and of course mobility skills, which is the longest. Learning how to use the cane, and the the literal and figurative finish line for me was my son was staying down at the Fisher House, a few blocks away from the VA hospital.
Mm-hmm.
If I could make it out of my room and out of the unit, down the stairs, out the front door, and down the road on my own to get to my son, I would graduate from blind school.
Mm-hmm.
And gosh, it's so hilarious. The whole learning experience. Every time I stepped out the sliding glass doors, it was like it sounded like jailbreak to me. There were people, smoking and joking out front. There's a water fountain. Birds are chirping. People are getting dropped off and picked up at the roundabout. Every time I stepped out the front door, it was like everybody stopped talking, and it felt like everybody was just staring at me. The birds stopped chirping. The water, stopped flowing from the water fountain, and they're all looking at me, going, "Does he know he just walked out the front door?" I think he may have taken a wrong turn. One of the inmates just escaped. But yeah, eventually I made it out and I graduated, and I was on my way to starting this new life. And between 2012 and 2015, I made the best of it. I requested the Army send me to the EOD school so I could stay on active duty and instruct future EOD students. And I did that for about a year and a half. I began public speaking and telling my story. And I also discovered a new life of adventure. Maybe it was just a fear of being stuck on the couch and being one of those service members having such a difficult time popping pills and considering becoming one of those 22 we lose each day.
Mm-hmm.
But I would refuse to. So maybe I overcompensated a bit. And I started climbing mountains, whitewater kayaking, running marathons. And I gotten to the point where I'd even qualified for the Boston Marathon. I ran that in 2014.
Were you a runner before, or that you just said, I'm going to throw myself into this and figure it out?
Yeah.
And did you have apprehension as to how can somebody that's blind run or climb the mountain or whitewater kayak? How did you find resources to help you through that?
Well, when I was still in the school, blind school, as soon as I learned how to use my accessible phone and computer, I was Googling blind plus outdoors, blind plus whatever. How do I do this? I was trying to learn how to live a life outside the VA hospital. And one name kept popping up, an Eric Weinmeyer. And he was the first, and I believe still the only blind person to ever climb Mount Everest.
Wow.
If a blind man can climb Mount Everest, I can stay off my butt and I can do it. I can be a good father. I can be fit and active. It's not as big. It's not as scary, or it's not as bad as it is scary, but I could do it. And that's when I started seeking them out. I sought out Eric on the 10th anniversary of his climbing Everest. He actually took a team of wounded veterans up a sister summit, La Bouche, of Everest. And then he started a program called Soldiers to Summits. And I got myself on to the third iteration of this team. And we, all wounded veteran team, climbed nearly 18,000 foot peak in the Peruvian Andes.
Wow.
So, living in Florida, of course, it's hard to find a decent mountain to train on.
Right.
So I started running to stay fit, and as a kind of a effect of just staying fit for the mountains, I started running longer and longer distances, and I signed up for 4 marathons in 4 months before I'd even run my first. And yeah, I kind of bite big off chunks of life, sometimes more than I can chew. But yeah, that's how I qualified for the Boston Marathon. The same thing with the whitewater kayaking. I'd learned about another blind veteran, Lonnie Bedwell, who is a very good friend now. He's the first blind person to kayak the entire Grand Canyon. And he was also one of my groomsmen in my wedding. I sought these guys out because they were accomplishing amazing things despite the disabilities. And I wanted to learn how. So uh, I was well on my way to, I guess, mastery of being blind, when in 2015, um, tra- tragedy struck again. That those cracks in my skull, I guess, weren't completely patched, or reopened, and bacterial meningitis crept in, and I was sent to the hospital again. This time, um, the meningitis nearly killed me. But between the heavy doses of antibiotics, or the meningitis itself, it stole what was left of my hearing, and actually, it destroyed much of my inner ear balance as well. So, knocked to the mat again in 2015. I was completely blind, completely deaf. I couldn't uh, even stay up on my own 2 feet, and I had to figure out all over again how I was gonna how I was gonna survive, how I was gonna do this.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, and I relate to uh, one of the skills taught to me in the army. That those 3-person EOD teams, they're given huge shipping containers full of tools, from bomb suits to robots and power tools and hazmat equipment. And then you deploy to locations like Iraq, and you've got that armored truck. We fill it to the max, but you can't fit all the tools we're given. So you got to decide what tools you're going to leave behind. And then in Afghanistan, most of the terrain were just dirt goat paths, and inaccessible to the trucks. So now we're dismounted, we're on foot patrol, and all I've got is what I can carry on my back in my rucksack. So now we're doing the exact same job and expected to do to defeat every explosive we would encounter, with just some bare C4 charges, maybe a rope and a grappling hook, and then it was just enough room for MREs and water and ammunition. So I call it my tools and my kit. I lost a few tools. I still got to do the same job.
Hmm.
Now I've lost a few tools, but I still got to do the same job. And um, it was a rough time after losing coming back from the hospital and having lost my hearing as well, and those demons try to creep in.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking, that the why me's and what ifs. So when is this soldier paid his fair share? When have I paid my dues? And uh, of course, my girlfriend at the time, uh, she wouldn't let me feel sorry for myself, and I'm not really programmed that way either.
Mm-hmm.
So I did what any person in my situation would have done. I started a chocolate company with my wife.
Hey, behind every good man, there's a good woman, right?
Yeah. Well, it started off as a type of therapy. I fell back on what I knew, and even though I couldn't see, I couldn't hear, and needed to hold on to the countertop just to stay upright, I began cooking. It was Thanksgiving time again, and like I said, it's a very special time for me. We invited friends and family. It was going to be a huge feast. We made so much food. I was cooking weeks in advance, making all these desserts, and I was taking all these. I was making batch after batch of fudge. I was experimenting with all these different types of flavors, and I was getting creative. I was tossing nuts and spices, and I was even mixing it up with some booze. It was great. And as it turns out, I was enjoying myself. My girlfriend said she saw something she hadn't seen on me in 6 months, and it was a smile on my face. You
Hmm.
gotta imagine, totally black, totally silent for 6 months before the cochlear implant, um, finally was tuned in enough and healed up enough to hear another human voice. And that's terribly isolating and very lonely. So Michaela was writing every single letter of every single word she needed to communicate with to me in the palm of my hand.
Hmm.
And that's very tedious, very frustrating. But it was the only way I could communicate with the outside world, or the outside world could communicate with me. So um, I began cooking, but I was making so much fudge and I was having a great time at it. But I made more than one family could eat all at one sitting ever. So Michaela started sneaking it out the front door. And I say sneaking like she's got to be real stealthy around a blind deaf guy. But yeah, and as it turns out, people would start coming back and saying, can I buy more of this? I've got a baby shower, I've got this or that. And the capitalist in me said, well, of course you may. And that's how eodfudge.com was born, or Extraordinary Delights. And there's a little tip of the cap to my previous occupation, but uh, it just took off. All of a sudden, we were making fudge for corporate gifts for like Boeing and other major companies,
Hmm.
and the volume, it just was staggering. Eventually, we had to move out of the home kitchen and find a larger facility, commercial kitchen, and now we're nearly 4 years into it.
Wow, incredible. I like the name too. How you the double meaning. That's good. Was that your idea or Michaela's?
That was my idea. It just kind of slipped out. We we joke about EOD and what it stands for when we're in the service. Some of the jokes are everyone's drunk, uh, but expert on demand.
Yeah.
Uh, but it just kind of came to me, uh, Extraordinary Delights, and people said it was great, and we stuck with it. Of course, we went with eodfudge.com for the website, but we later expanded our selections beyond fudge. So our social media handles at EOD Confections,
Hmm.
but yeah, that came later.
Incredible. So, what your son then, when a lot of this was going on, was what, 4 or 5 years old when you lost your hearing? Is that timing about right? Like, how is he dealing with that when now that he's, talking and watching his dad go through that? What was that like for him and for you? How did you kind of talk to him about it?
Well, um, I he his mother and I divorced in 2014. This was after the injury, and it just had to happen.
Hmm.
He went to his mom, and so we had visitation. He was still a young toddler, uh, but he he's now living with us. He has been for a couple years now,
Hmm.
and yeah, he does great. He's 8, almost 9 now. An incredible kid. He makes being a dad easy.
Hmm.
Just really, he's an amazing athlete. He studies hard. He's helpful. He's amazing with his twin brothers. And when it comes to the the disabilities, he's also, I don't know, it's really all he's known because it happened when he was one. He doesn't know his dad any other way.
Hmm.
So it's just natural for him. It was a little weird when we just custody changed, and I'd take him. We would go to the beach or the pool, and there'd be other kids, and he would just kind of blurt out, "My dad doesn't have any eyes."
There you
But
go. Just get ahead of it, right?
I think he was just trying to get to understand it a little bit, and thought it might be interesting to the other kids.
Hmm.
But nowadays, it's not a big deal. It's just life in
Hmm.
the Hale household.
So yeah, that was one thing I guess a lot of people don't know, the cochlear implant. So you said for 6 months you were essentially completely deaf, and now you can hear almost everything, it seems.
It's difficult to describe. It's very digital. It's a digital signal. My ears are completely turned off, and the cochlear device, like a hearing aid, has microphones, but it sends a through a tether that's magnetized to the implant on the inside, sends a digital signal right into the cochlea and the auditory nerve. It just sends an electric signal. So um, the sound is much like, uh, say you're at home and it's very quiet, and for me, very dark, and you call up a friend on your phone, and they're at a restaurant, and they just put the phone on speaker in the middle of the table. That's how life is.
Hmm.
It's a wall of sound, so you can't. Sometimes that are closer sound a little bit louder, but you're picking up all that interference from everything around you, and every extra noise, any bit of volume, interferes what's happening. What you're trying to put your attention on.
Hmm.
So, and of course, call quality uh, uh, counts too. And
Hmm.
it's just um, everything from just a light breeze to uh, traffic will ruin a conversation.
Hmm.
But I got to tell you, the technology is amazing. My phone and my computer are Bluetooth connected right to my brain, which is hilarious because I can read my mail and listen to an audiobook on my phone right from my pocket, and nobody's the wiser. Uh, um, and it beats the hell out of the alternative. Maybe 20 years ago, I would have been pulling the full Helen Keller right now.
Wow. Yeah. So what would you say? I mean, your spirit and your enthusiasm and your resilience is incredible. And I guess you did say the military kind of sharpened that. But what kind of advice would you give, the wounded veterans? And you even mentioned the number, the 22, and that's how many servicemen taking their lives every day. Is that correct?
The number one thing is that you don't. The reason I can be resilient and that others are is that we've learned that the struggle isn't the problem. The struggle is uh, how we become stronger. We lift weights to grow muscle, and we run to grow, to build a circulatory system and respiratory, and just get faster. But it takes miles, and it takes weight, and our hardships make our head, our mind, and our heart stronger. Uh, Despite our injuries, or despite what we lies ahead of us, um, the pain thrives in darkness. If we bring it out into the sunlight and we face it, uh, those scars can heal. So I just face everything head on.
And I guess putting yourself in these races and things like that, they must really just inspire you and give you a goal that you need to achieve. Because I can imagine, just the depression and the isolation can really, the inertia of it can really, you know, keep somebody down. And it seems like you recognize that and you said, I got to get out there or else this thing's going to get me.
It also takes a healthy dose of humility. Uh, our ego wants us to think only about ourselves, and then we start thinking about how terrible our situation is. And everybody's gone through this, especially or the wounded veterans that you feel like nobody can understand what they're going through, how bad the level of our pain is or our suffering, and it's not true. Nobody knows you, but everybody's known pain, and everybody has something that they can teach us. So we gotta learn to, even through our own pain, empathize with others. And through empathizing and sharing others' pain, ours is diminished.
Let's take a quick break for our dad tip of the week, brought to you by Kickstart Reading. Do you have kids between the ages of 3 and 6? I've got 2 boys, and when my older son was going into kindergarten, my wife and I quickly learned that we had no idea how to teach him how to read. We found Kickstart Reading and watched one 2-minute video together, and you could see his confidence take off. Bonus, I felt like Dad of the Year. Here's another dad talking about how Kickstart Reading is helping his boys learn how to read.
Hey there, this is Chris Heller, and I'm a big fan of Kickstart Reading. Each morning before school, I show a video to my 4.5-year-old son, and now his little 2-year-old brother is getting in on the action as well. I'm a big fan of the videos, highly consumable and engaging for young boys. Definite recommend for all parents out there who are looking to get their kids off to the right start with reading. Kickstart Reading.
Go to kickstartreading.com and use the code DAD to get 65% off right now. That's D-A-D, DAD. See? It works. Kickstartreading.com. Now back to the show. On the Dad the Best I Can show, we like to do a dad tip for other dads out there. So you've got 3 kids now. Do you have a tip you can give other dads?
Yeah, basically, basic tip for dads is that, and I think maybe touches back on that humility thing. And it's not about you. Yeah, you're not the most important thing in that household. Uh, you're just the helper.
Mm-hmm.
You're helping the kids grow into being, good people. It's your job not to raise assholes. Plus, you need to. I mean, if you got a partner, you're doing it together, and you're their support team. It's not about the slack you're picking up, but what you can take off of your wife's shoulders. Everywhere I can, I try to do my best, and it's being blind and deaf. It always feels like I'm the burden. It's uh, like I'm creating more work sometimes, but there's so much I can do around the house. There's so much I can do for the children. I have a lot to teach and to give, and everywhere I am, it's not about what it's for me. It's about what I can do for the rest of the family.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That's true. I mean, and it takes kind of having kids to check your ego and realize that it's almost a gift. I've heard somebody say, it's almost one of the best part about being a parent is not making yourself the most important person in your own life. And, it takes having kids and going through the challenges of that to get there.
One other thing I brought into my parenting that I learned in the military is that exercise is a great disciplinary tool. And I told you, my son Cameron, he makes it easy, but every kid slips up. And instead of being grounded or using some kind of corporal punishment, we work out.
Mm-hmm.
And simple things like push-ups and wall sits, or just um, holding a couple books out, straight arm style. Uh, it's a struggle for him, and it really burns the message into his head. And he's a really fit kid.
Getting in trouble can pay off. You can get in good
Uh,
shape. I like that idea.
that's right. It benefits him, and it's not, it doesn't it's not one of those disciplines that makes you feel guilty afterwards either.
Are you going out there and doing the exercise and the punishment with them, or is it for him to go
Always.
do himself?
Yeah, absolutely. When anytime I have to, explain something or cringe, lecture him, we'll do a wall sit, and I'll time it, but while we're sitting at the wall, both of us, and yeah, my legs will be burning too. I'll just talk to him about why he's in trouble. Of course, I can't see him, so I'll just check to make sure, his knees in the right position and whatnot, and he's still there.
Yeah.
He could be just standing, he's standing beside me while I do a wall sit and huffing and puffing. Oh yeah, this is terrible.
That means it's working, right? He'll behave better, and he's getting in good shape. I like that. I'm gonna start using that on my boys today after school. What do you have any other advice for, either parents with disabilities or parents with kids who have disabilities? I'm sure there are a lot of people that, as you find when you're a parent, nobody gives you a manual and tells you. And I can imagine especially with kids with disabilities, it's a whole new challenge that you're not really sure. You don't want your kids to be bullied, and you don't want, kids making fun of you. I don't know how your 8-year-old handles it. I like how you said he just my dad has no eyes. Just get in front of it and make light of it. But any advice for parents and kids out there?
Don't do it alone. It's hard enough to being a parent if somebody in the family also has disabilities. Uh, you know, you're not the first one. You don't have to break new trail. There are organizations out there. There are people out there, blogs, videos, websites that somebody has come across this situation before, and seek out like I was learning how to become a blind person. I sought out mentors. I sought out peers. They're out there, and having a good support system makes it a lot easier and a lot less frustrating.
Okay, Aaron, on the Dad the Best I Can show, we like to do rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Ready.
What is your favorite food to cook?
Anything that comes out of the smoker, or anything wrapped in a tortilla. So my favorite would be smoked barbacoa tacos.
Delicious. I know you make desserts for a living. What do you think is the best dessert you make?
Uh, well, one of my favorites is our flagship fudge. It's American pick me up. It's literally it's a all American version of tiramisu. So, and tiramisu literally is pick me up in Italian, and it's got chocolate, coffee, nuts, and a little alcohol in it. But American pick me up, it's all American version. So it's instead of espresso and frangelico, it's all American pecans, Georgia pecans, and bourbon.
Delicious. What is your favorite movie of all time?
Oh man, I should say something like Casablanca, but it's probably Stripes uh, yeah, or the Blues Brothers, probably.
Oh yeah, Stripes is great. Is that what inspired you to get into the military? I imagine that's just what it's like, Bill Murray.
No, I mean, I think my favorite military movies would be Platoon.
What is your favorite concert you've ever seen?
I used to work through high school and college. I used to work at a Blossom Music Center in Ohio, big concert venue. Yeah, there was a lot of good ones. I think um, probably the White Zombie Pantera. They just blew the roof off the place.
That's awesome. I just got my kids into Rob Zombie. They're very excited. They don't know what it is, but they're into it.
Hmm.
What is the athletic achievement you are most proud of?
Oh man. Well, right after the meningitis, maybe 1 year after the meningitis, and I'd regained my a little bit of my hearing and a little bit of my balance. I worked my tail off, and my comeback marathon, just the 2 years or a year prior, I ran Boston, and then, hospital, came back and worked my way back to running my hometown marathon, actually the same week as my 20th high school reunion. And I PR'd, got a sub 4 hour race and qualified for Boston all over again.
So, wow. So you ran Boston?
I've run it twice.
Wow. What's that like? That looks like an incredible rush.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, the scenery never changes, but it's fun to know you're there.
That's awesome. One other thing I saw in you write a blog for EO Fudge, and I saw your make the bed every day. I've heard this tip before, and I'm trying to get my kids to do it. It's a military thing, right? Can you explain the make your bed every day and the importance of it?
Oh yeah, well that was Admiral McRaven said that. He was a Navy SEAL, and he said the one thing, he listed a few things he learned from being a SEAL that it helped him become successful in life. And one of them was make your bed every day, and what he said was life can be hard, it can be tough, and you can face failure after failure, but you can always, if you make your bed every day, at least you'll come home each night to a made bed, and at least you start off each morning with one success, one completion.
I like that. I'm going to have to keep convincing my kids to do it, but now there'll be wall sits and runs around the block if they can't make their beds.
Well, I try to live by my own standards, but it's hard to make your bed when your wife's still in it.
Well, it sounds like Michaela, is that her name?
Yes.
It sounds like she's amazing, and I'm sure she's got her hands full with all you boys in the house, 4-month-old twins. I can't imagine the challenges that come with that, but it sounds like you have a great support system, and I thank you so much for sharing your story, Aaron. It was super inspiring. I'll link to the video where you tell it, and that's an incredible video. And where can people learn more about what you're doing at EOD Fudge?
Well, like I said, it's eodfudge.com, and there's like you said, the video, there's a short bio about us, and of course you can sample the fudge and other treats there. Plus you can follow us and keep up to date with some of my misadventures on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. It's at EOD Confections.
That's great stuff. I mean, this is like the kind of story I see on Shark Tank. I don't know if you guys are applying for it, but the story is excellent. And really, that's why, when people are buying a product, a lot of it is the story and the people behind it. So I know where I'm getting my fudge for the holidays this year. Aaron, thank you for being on the Dad the Best I Can show, and I hope to talk to you soon.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Thank you guys for listening to the Dad the Best I Can show. Go take 5 seconds, hop on over to dadthebestican.com and sign up with your email to get weekly updates, dad tips in your mailbox. Get your questions answered on the show. That's dadthebestican.com. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. Actually, 5 stars, we could do better than that. Brooks? Infinity stars, Cameron? How many stars?
Infinity 1,000.
Infinity 1,000. You gotta one-up him in this household. Thanks. See ya.